Okay, we are live. Welcome. Welcome to Monday, January the 13th, our first Be Live Travel Business Mastermind discussion for 2020. So glad everybody has joined us today. You can ask questions via the comments, so please feel free to do so. We've got a short presentation that we're going to include to illustrate some of the concepts of successful business planning. But we're hoping we're going to spend the bulk of the time answering questions. If you've got any situations you're willing to talk to us about now, we'd love to even diagnose it a little bit with you during the Q&A session. So with that, we are going to share a screen with some slides. Okay. There you go. There we are.
Hey,
Sorry about that.
that's okay.
And
Technical difficulties always.
I'll tell you, when you don't, hold on a second.
You're pulling up your slides?
Yes. Can you see them?
Not yet.
Okay. So now I'm going to go back and hit the share sign. And it's disappeared. So hold on a second. I'm going to have to load out again. Sorry about this. For some reason, the PowerPoint slide is not showing up. And now, so there we are. Okay. Has it come up yet?
No, it hasn't come up.
Okay.
We may have to go without slides.
We will. Okay. So, one of the things about business planning is that most of us are much more comfortable working in the abstract. We think about our bank account. We think about if you are running a cash flow statement or you're running income forecast and you know what your financials were when you filed your tax return, I did $450,000 last year. Boy, wouldn't it be great knowing my margin if I could get to 600,000. So these big goals. But what a lot of people don't understand is that numbers are very specific to how you got there. You're already performing a series of tasks, whether that's marketing, the suppliers that you work with, how often you post on Facebook, if you have done some kind of paid advertising, gone to consumer expos. And if you've done that often enough over time, you're starting to create sort of numeric formulas in your business that over time are going to be consistent. And it's those numbers that take you from that goal of growing from 450,000 to 600,000 to the point where you know how to find that $150,000 in new business because the numbers are there. Hey, Rich, my typical FIT is $30,000 and my commission on that is like $4,500. Okay, well, what kind of FIT is it? It's to Latin and South America. I've got a couple of really great DMCs and a tour operator. I also get some great consolidator fares down there. And when I package these for a family of 6 or more or a group, I can really clean up. Oh, okay. So how many of those customers are in your current CRM? How are you marketing to try to find more of them to get them into your sales funnel? That's the law of numbers. And once you stop thinking abstractly about that goal of 150,000 and start breaking it down into the logical next steps, and we like to reverse engineer because when you look at $150,000, if that average FIT is $30,000, we can estimate if we got two $30,000 clients at another $60,000 a year in revenue to you, and you maintain the number that you had last year, then guess what? We only need another 90,000 from other categories. And now we've got some real practical steps that we can employ to get you to that amount. So if you read our blog from last week, we talked about Tom. We created an avatar of our own. And Tom is a travel advisor. He's been in business for 7 years. He annually conducts a year-end review. He always, late November, before December, kind of knows 90% of his business, 95% of his business is booked. And he can take that time between Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's to take a breath and take a look. How did I do? Kind of where did that money come from? Well, in our scenario, Tom's a generalist. He works at the whim of the wind. And if a client somehow gets referred to him by an existing client and they want to go to Latin and South America and they're interested in FIT, that's how he scores that next success. He doesn't control that success. And you can see that in Tom's numbers, because no category represents more than 15% of his total sales volume. So he's got 7 or 8 categories that are kind of about the same amount of money. Tom extracts about $67,000 out of his total every year. That's his annual income after expenses. But Tom is working ridiculous hours, and he estimates on the back of an envelope that he's only making about $25 an hour. And he's kind of maxing out on the number of hours a day he can give to his business. So even if he did have more business at a higher rate, how would he actually service those clients? How would he put those trips together? So Tom's got a conundrum. And just like I said before, if all Tom looks at is the big picture and the conundrum, then if he doesn't break it down into small bites, we're working reverse back to, well, what do I do next to start getting there? He may always be floating with the prevailing winds. So what we would have done for Tom is we would have run his numbers. We would have looked at what his opportunities are. And we would have given him some different scenarios based on, well, Tom, what if instead of only having one client like that, you had 3 a year? Well, we'd want to take a look at that one client that you seem to get every year, and we'd want to try to replicate them. There are things about that client that are probably consistent across a broad population that you, again, can control trying to attract them into your fold. Whether it's through your existing CRM, they're there, but they've never thought about going to South and Latin America as a group, and they've never heard your value proposition, or a brand new prospect, somebody who might find you via a really attractive Facebook ad or an Instagram ad. You can control those kinds of things, and we would start to walk Tom through that. Now, Myrna and I sort of cover the blanket of a travel agency's operations in terms of you've got that big bogey, and you won't necessarily be able to get to that bogey unless you think about the different portions of your business that contribute to that additional income. Generally, for a travel advisor, the 2 biggest areas are sales and marketing and operations. So we would, once we kind of know how many of these clients does Tom need to bring in, we'd start asking Tom, okay, so Tom, let's take a look at how you currently convey the value proposition of working with your travel agency. Why would somebody who could book that Latin America FIT not go through a tour operator and 1 or 2 vendors? Why would they not piece it together on an OTA? And let's see whether or not those needs that ideal client has, do you convey that message that you do those things? So, and frankly, Tom, do you even like booking those trips?
And that's where the why comes in, right? So when you know who you are and what you like working on and what you make money at. So what Richard's trying to say is that you can take that, translate it into a marketing message that's going to attract the right people to you. Likewise, it's really important that once you figure out who that sweet spot client is, you then arrange your business in such a way that you have the time and energy to devote to those clients, which means that when you get requests that are, way outside of the ballpark of what you do, you gracefully decline them and focus your energy on the ones that actually make money for you. Right. And so part of what gives you the confidence to do that is to actually look at your numbers, because when you look at your numbers, you can see what a huge difference in revenue that can make. So you could have a situation where, one booking can make you $5,000 in commission versus 10 bookings that make you $200 each. You can start to see how you can maximize the value of your time, increase your hourly rate, by not necessarily working harder or getting more clients, but by focusing on getting those better clients. And setting those goals really starts with taking a really good look at who you are, who you like to serve, and what you're good at. So for me personally, I love, big epic trips. So that's what I focus on. I don't like to book little hotel stays and little beach resort things. That's not what I do. I do the safaris, I do the river cruises, I do the luxury cruise trips, far away in exotic locations, because that's, to me, fun to work on, fun for my clients, and I do a great job at it. And it also makes me a lot of money. Whereas the little trips, they end up sometimes taking more time than you think. Go ahead, Richard. You can
go. So, like Myrna said, you've taken a look at your ideal client. You've also looked at, that FIT trip. If it wows me, why does it wow me? Why? Because I work with some of the great little villas that give me an extra bonus, commission versus some of the standard resorts, and it typically is a higher priced, total accommodations package. Or you're looking at those whys. Why do you enjoy doing them? What do your clients like buying from them? But then there's the operations side. And operations, to me, now, while sales and marketing does include your suppliers, you are selling someone else's services. You are selling destinations that you don't own. Those same entities are on the operations side of your business. Do they have the commission structure that you need to get to that bogey? If you needed the $4,200 per $30,000 FIT to Latin and South America, have you sat down with your BDM recently and said, look, I'm think I'm going to double down in your space. And between my consortia, my host agency, try to understand what the financials will be if I can score 2 more of these hits in 2020. And that's, not only am I starting to introduce that deep BDM to, I need your support because I'm going to support you more. You're also starting to build in the financials around that, because what if your average commission on a typical sale is only about $700. You're really doing well. It's not those $100 commissions for these one-offs, but you really got a great book of business. Well, if you can afford to give up a piece of that $4,200 commission for marketing, you're now starting to see where maybe your marketing budget can come in, that you'll earn more. You'll bring that $700 average commission closer to the $4,200, but maybe a little bit less than what you would have gotten if you didn't put that as a marketing expense. So you've got to look at those supplier relationships. You may need their photos and their videos for your organic campaigns or even your paid campaigns. And that's really, are you ready to ramp up selling and servicing this category in this market? Your knowledge base. You may have had experience in that market and you see the opportunity, but if you start getting 1 or 2 consults a month through your different campaigns, they may not be inclined to book what you've sold in the past. So do you have the knowledge base? And again, your supplier can help you with your knowledge base, getting certified as a specialist with different suppliers or destinations. But additionally, you want to be able to understand within that category, that adventure travel or that Costa Rica trip, are there upsell opportunities that you should be putting in there? Are those customers going to need more travel insurance than you typically sell for your ocean cruises? Because that's all a part of your operations. And will your sales scripts reflect that if you don't have that information? If you're not reflecting that on your website, if you're not including that in the email sequences once a client books with you. So this will also mean on the back end of your business. How good are you with your CRM? If you're starting to do an organic campaign and you're starting to fill up your email database with prospects you've never met before, are you familiar enough with your CRM to start scoring them in a certain fashion that they came in interested in South America, Central America, FIT? And how are you going to leverage email skills? Those are more the operations. They deliver sales and marketing, but you need to know how to do these things to take advantage of those increased prospects and opportunities. Myrna?
That's right. So really, I think it's January, right? We're all thinking about goals. The way I do it is I come up with what my number is for the year. So if I want to do, say, 10,000 a month, 20,000 a month in commissions, whatever it is that your goal is, but let's use 10,000 as an example. And then I look at my numbers. What was my average booking last year? Am I going to try to shift that up, like Richard said, or am I going to just stick with that just for purposes of being conservative? So if my average booking is, say, $800 of revenue, then I can divide 10,000 by 800. So I know how many bookings I need to get. Then I look at what I have. What are my assets? So I keep a list of all of my leads and prospects since I started travel 7 years ago. I have about 2,000 people on that list. So that's a place I can go send marketing to. I also can do Facebook ads. I have a Facebook page with followers. I have an Instagram page with followers. So once you know kind of the numbers that you need, like if I know that I need to get 10 new clients this month that are each going to book something that's $1,000, then what's my close rate? How many of those do I typically turn into an actual booking? Average for the travel industry is 16%. So if you know that 16% of everybody you talk to is going to close, then you can back out how many people you need to talk to. And then it's a matter of just getting those leads in. And of course, you can do that through all different ways: advertising, organic posting, getting out in your community and networking, going back to your existing clients for rebookings and referrals. But this is how you build the plan. This is really how you build the plan. And then, like Richard said, you leverage your BDMs and your suppliers for resources. So for example, one agency I work with on her marketing, she is doing a campaign this year with Royal Caribbean, and Royal Caribbean is actually helping her pay for her Facebook ads, which is amazing, right? So I met with them and we figured out what we're going to promote. She's going to pay part of the cost. We're going to run this campaign for her. Your suppliers, actually have money for this. And depending on who your host agency is, you can actually talk to them, get approval, get this in motion. So there's no reason that you have to fund all of your advertising yourself. But like Richard said, the important thing is that you have to know your numbers so that you know how much you can afford to spend. So I know if I'm going to make $1,000 on a booking, how much of that can I afford to spend on marketing? Rule of thumb, 10%. But again, it's personal. It depends on your personal budget, your situation, which we don't know. But 10% is a good number to shoot for. So I know that I can spend up to $100 getting this new customer. So that's a budget. So if I want to make $10,000, my marketing budget is about $1,000 a month. And this pretty much plays out, I think, for most agencies that I work with. We kind of work with these average numbers, and there's people that spend less and people that spend more, but generally that tends to work. But you won't be able to make these decisions until you understand like the fundamentals and put them in a business plan, which is what Richard was talking about earlier.
So one of the things that we've built into our 12-week coaching program is we understand sort of human nature. We are all creatures of habit. And we do things almost without thinking about it. It's like breathing. We get up every morning, we run our travel agency the same way, we run our consulting business the same way. And only when there's a catalyst for change do we even consider doing things differently and start exploring that. And one of the things that you need to think about as you look at that huge goal, gee, I need to bring in another 20% more revenue at this rate in order to have an income that I feel happy with. And I've got a little discretionary income. I can go on more fam trips, whatever. When you are setting that big goal, what we try to do to overcome the resistance that's natural to human beings is we try to get you to focus on one thing. So let's say we take Tom as an example. Tom wants to double down on a particular high commission product and an ideal client that would fit that product. He wants at least 2 more bookings that look like that client that he sold this year, next year, plus the client that he did book this year. So he wants 3 of those in 2020. Well, how do I do that? Because this other one just came in as a referral and I can't just replicate referrals. So there's a Japanese philosophy, and we wrote about it very briefly, and we linked to a blog about this concept of Kaizen. And what you do with Kaizen is when you take a look at that big goal that Tom has, we say, okay, so Tom, $150,000 is what your bogey is, and you may not get all 5 of those new customers on an annual basis today, but you're going to shoot for 2 or 3 this year. Okay. Well, how do we now start to find them? Well, I know one great supplier that made this particular 2019 client happy. They loved the villa company I worked with. They loved the airport transfer company. Those great commissionable wholesale rates worked perfectly for this family from Dallas, Texas. Wow. Okay. Well, are there other suppliers, other cities that you can serve with wholesalers? And now let's start working through what those steps are to bring more sales into your funnel from the top end and start breaking that down. Tom, audit your website. When someone arrives at your website, if we did an organic campaign or a paid campaign, if they came to your website, do you reflect back out to the world that that's what you serve? Okay, so now if there's multiple things that are either not in alignment with your why, not in alignment with this big goal, if we start to think about how someone comes in the sales funnel, we can walk you all the way back to the very first step you need to take. And in Tom's case, because he'd never booked this before, but he loved it and he likes the opportunity on the income because he can turn that trip around into more net income very quickly. Tom's first got to spend time on, why do I like this? Why do I think I can serve it more? He's got to nail that down because he looks at his news feed and he looks at his website and he never talks about that type of a client. He never talks about that kind of a trip. And until he starts doing so, he really can't even start serving those clients. Once Tom gets that right, he doesn't have to launch it publicly, but the next thing he has to do in walking through the customer journey to booking with him is think about, so if they were to see my paid ad and they were to link here, what's their experience like? And if they set up a consultation call with me, do I have the right sales script in place? Would my BDM be able to show me a sales script that they've used with other travel advisors? Do I have a peer group? And now all of a sudden, he's going from that very first step. All I'm going to do is audit myself. Do I really want to do this? Does this fit with my why? Do I like the suppliers I'll be working with? Did I love that particular type of client? Once he nails that, and that's the core of his energy and his motivation, now he can literally start thinking through the customer value journey to the point where, oh, wait a second, I'm going to need to add a nav bar on my nav bar. I'm going to need to add a section that speaks to that client. Oh, wait a second, I need to talk to my BDM again by getting assets for that section. I need to ask my BDM about assets that I can use in other places. And he can literally start setting up a series of steps that he takes to put the whole chain in place and then turn it on and start to track it, measure it, and refine it.
Yep. That's all there is to it. I know it sounds easy, right?
But it is when you break it down.
It is when you break it down and when you just focus on the next step, right? Yeah. And you do one thing at a time, because a lot of times we get overwhelmed if we try to look at the big goal, like, oh, I'm never going to make that much money. Like, how am I going to do that? That's like, 50% more than I made last year. But if you really think about it and step back and breathe, and then just say, okay, what does this really take? Like, how many new people do I need to talk to each day in order to have enough conversations, enough sales conversations that's going to lead to the number of bookings that I want? Because at the end of the day, it is a numbers game. Everything we do is numbers, and we can increase our odds. The better our messaging is, the better our website reflects who we are and what we do. The better our Facebook ads reflect that. The things that we post about on social media, the more we keep that consistent brand out there, the better you're going to close the people that are attracted to that, because they're coming to you because they've seen something in your content that resonates with them. So those are your best clients. So you need to make sure that what you're putting out is going to attract those people. And that's step one. And then it's a matter of just figuring out, okay, I have this many leads. I need 50 new leads a month in order to generate, 10 sales calls in order to close 5 bookings, whatever your numbers work out to be. And then it's just a matter of, okay, how can I get those leads? And again, we can help you figure that out. It's just a matter of looking at, who this person is, where they hang out, A lot of this stuff can be done without advertising, just by putting yourself in the situation where you're going to be able to meet these people, whether it's networking or in Facebook groups online. It doesn't all have to be running an ad. But sometimes running an ad can work because if you're looking for something that's specific and you're looking for a specific target market, Facebook is really good at finding those people for you and showing them your message. So if you can get a really good message that resonates, that people want to respond to, you can generate a lot of leads very quickly. But again, it's every agency is different, and but it's important that you think through what is that goal for you. And once you have that goal, then you can work on a plan because I know it's wave season and everybody's getting really busy. But what you don't want to do is just be in survival mode in your business, like just doing whatever you have to do that day and never really taking the time to plan. Even if it's on the weekend, take an hour or two to yourself to really think about your business and how it's doing, how you'd like to change it, and the one thing you can take, one little step you can take to get closer to that goal. Whether it's writing a blog post, posting something on social, changing some of the copy on your website, even these little tiny things, as long as you do it consistently, it will eventually get you to your goal.
And you can do this offline as well. If you're a destination wedding specialist and you gain most of your new sales leads from a handful of bridal expos in the first quarter of the year, if you've done that for 2 or 3 years and you've seen what those ratios are from people who gave you their contact information to people who responded to an email, opened an email, if you're starting to understand those metrics, and then well, I closed on 2 from the expo I went to in January, where I spent $500 for the booth, and I had to refresh my exhibit materials. That cost me another $400, so I spent $900 to go to that expo. And I closed on 2 destination weddings, and I made, $20,000 off those 2 destination weddings. I'm throwing numbers out there, obviously. But if you have that history in an Excel form, now you can say, okay, what if, since I've got the capacity, I've got the operational ability to double the number of destination weddings I handle coming out of that one single expo, then all that means, as Myrna just said, is I just need, if I go to that expo every year and it only seems to get me 2, what am I doing? What's broken in between going to the expo, getting those people into the sales funnel and not closing on them? And you can start working through the metrics to say, okay, well, maybe it was where they were traveling to. Those 2 people happened to book the Caribbean. And I kind of heavily show Caribbean on my marketing. Well, maybe that's the reason why these people were inclined to go to Cancun or Riviera Maya, and you didn't display that. We can start to break those logical steps down. If your goal is, I want to turn 2 destination weddings into 4, but you've got to go through those steps and breaking them into their disparate pieces to try to see, what is it I might be able to change. And the other thing about Kaizen, which is really just, the whole constant quality, I forget the name of it, but the one that Ritz-Carlton did back in the 1990s, they took Professor Deming's philosophy of constant improvement, and they made it into the Baldrige Award with the U.S. Department of Commerce. The concept is, don't worry if you didn't get it right the first time. The key is learning from the changes that you made, because if you change only 1 or 2 things, something's going to pop up where you go, oh, wait a second, I did add Mexico to my website. I showed a little bit more Mexico on there, but I didn't mention Mexico in my email campaign, or it's not in my sales script. Or when somebody mentioned they'd rather go to Riviera Maya, I don't have the knowledge base for it, so maybe I didn't impress them when they were on the call. You can diagnose the experiment and just keep refining it and give yourself, we know human nature. Celebrating little victories gives you the confidence to overcome the personal resistance, and that constant state of refinement just becomes a natural part of the way you operate. It changes your mindset.
That's right.
So I'm going to ask either Joan or Skip, any questions? Joan or Skip? So, that's the beauty of business today. is that so much of what we do can be measured, can be tracked, and learning how to look forward to a monthly report that says your email campaign produced 12 consultation calls, but last year it only generated 4. You really can. You can start to see the improvements, and over time, those improvements start ending up in your bank account.
Awesome. I don't see any questions.
Oh, my calendar reminders are popping.
I know. Skip says he'd love to set up a call. Yeah, we'd love to chat with you. So we can, we'll reach out to you to get that set up after this live. Okay. Yep. Does anybody want any other, does anybody have anything else? Any other comments, or I don't see anything else.
So the one other thing I will tell you is that, I was a running coach for 4 or 5 years. I'm hoping to get back to it. Is you can do this. You can train yourself to do anything. I went from being a 5K runner to completing 8 marathons, not because I'm a special person, but because I took the time to incrementally improve my body, improve my mind to accomplish a task that originally felt impossible and ambiguous to me. And going through that process, I really did learn that each and every one of us can accomplish pretty much anything we put our mind to, but you need to do it incrementally if it's going to be a significant change. And I am going to be so overtly sales and marketing oriented, is most of us need a coach. Most of us need somebody who gives us a compass that puts us in the right direction, who asks the right questions, who holds us accountable to ourselves if we aren't necessarily going to do that for ourselves because we're changing the way we think, feel, our mindset. So, finding somebody in your sphere, whether it's a paid coach or someone who's just really close to you, who can perform those roles is critical to achieving an ambiguous goal by breaking it down into its logical steps.
Okay, I'm going to post a link where if any of you would like to get on a call with us, we're happy to do that. So I'm going to post a link in the comments where you can go and it'll pop up our calendar and you can actually schedule a call with us.
So just to let you know, Myrna and I are going to keep doing these particular interviews every other week. And what I'm going to be doing next Monday, if you want to join, I'm going to do a preview of the Cruise World presentation that I did in November down in Fort Lauderdale. So if you want to see that whole concept of finding your why, doubling down on it, and how it works, you can join me next Monday. I will put out a Facebook Live event on the Facebook page. And at some point, we're thinking maybe we create an email system wrapped around these as well. So if you do want to do that, you can log in, sort of register, and then the email reminders will come out as well. It's up to you guys. But next Monday, it'll be myself doing my Cruise World presentation. You'll see more at our Facebook page. So with that, in 2 weeks, we're going to take it from Business Planning 101 to Business Planning 102. And Myrna is going to talk a lot about the operations side of the business and how once you start saying to yourself, I may increase the number of prospects coming in, what are some of the philosophies around operationalizing that? Because we use HubSpot, we use email aggressively, and I'm going to be very honest with you, it's mostly Myrna because she's a heck of a lot better at that than I am. But if you're going to be bringing in so many people to your sales funnel, you've got to start using tools to do that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in 2 weeks from today. Okay. So with that, we're going to close this out. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Stay in touch. Look for the next blog, probably the middle to end of this week. And, feel free to send us questions or comments through the Facebook Messenger tool on Travel Business Mastermind. We'll get back to you pretty quickly. Have a good Monday and a great week planning for 2020.